81 of the Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, June 2nd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
Not too bad. Can you believe we're already in June?
I can't. I was talking to someone last night at my first softball practice, and I'm all like, "Oh yeah, I got this thing coming up in July," and they're like, "You mean next month?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh shit,
Yeah.
we're in the summer. The summer is now here."
Yep. We went to a soccer game this week, Austin FC in the MLS, and it was pretty nice. It was a little warm there, and as you well know, Jen and I definitely don't mind the heat, but we kind of looked at each other like, oh yeah, this is gonna be about the last day that it will even be relatively nice out here. It'll be sweltering the rest of the way if you're doing anything outdoors here, and if you got to deal with it if you want to do anything outdoors. But again, we love the heat, so it's fine. I want to make a quick announcement that Monday's pod will be pushed to Tuesday. We missed this Monday for the holiday, didn't make it up. Next upcoming Monday, we're gonna move just to Tuesday because I'll be out for the day. So just know that. But anyway, you ready to talk some baseball?
Absolutely.
Got a few news and notes, and we got some two steps to discuss. A lot of interesting guys for next week. I'm very curious to see where you come out on some of these guys that might be viable streamers, or if you're just hard passing. But we do have to talk about Chris Sale leaving his start early. Pretty unfortunate because Sale's been rocking. I got him on my main, so I'm very dialed in to what he's doing every fifth day, and it's hard to complain lately. So of course, if it's not going to be poor production, it's going to be injury. And like I said, Sale was absolutely cooking lately, had a great May. Hopefully this isn't a big deal, but what did you think when you saw Sale leave early with injury last night on Thursday?
Karma. It is absolute karma. I don't know if you were in the Pull Hitter podcast Discord yesterday.
No, I didn't see it.
But there was a big discussion around Chris Sale and just how good he's been. And there were a couple comments, including Randy Haynes, who's a former podcaster for Friends of Fantasy Benefits, saying stuff. It's like, remember when people were like, oh, you should drop him after 2 starts? How stupid. And then, like, literally,
right.
like 30 minutes later, he exits the game with an injury. So, Randy, I blame you.
That's unfair to blame Randy, though.
I love
people
Randy.
were being pretty wild, and it looked bad, right? But I think it's another good case of why we don't react so early, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about this every year, you and I, how difficult it is to do analysis early on. People want to make moves on guys that they have no business even looking at, right? Like I couldn't have cared less. Well, that's not true. I was actually tripping out.
Yeah, I was very, very scared after.
But I knew that cutting him. I mean, I shouldn't say I knew that it was the right move, but it just felt like silly to consider after 3 starts. As much as I believed in the guy, what I thought Sale could do this year, it seemed wild to do that. Now, he isn't as stable as, say, the easy examples like last year's Marcus Semien, who had those 45 games without a homer, looked terrible. Sale has had some things recently that might have given you some pause, and then you're having the 3 bad starts. You're like, oh my God, did I make a mistake here on a 34-year-old who's just washed? Well, then he goes out, puts up 7 really strong starts coming into yesterday. He was great while he pitched too, by the way. 3 2/3, five hits, a run, and 6 strikeouts. Are you worried about this shoulder soreness? I mean, obviously we don't have any news right now, so we're dealing in the dark. Are you nervous here though?
I mean, anytime we have a shoulder issue or an elbow issue with a pitcher, I'm worried. So, but there's nothing you can do. I'm not like trying to like sell him for 50 cents on a dollar or something like, right. Because like you said, I mean, the last 7 starts have just been stellar. I mean, he has been, Chris Sale, and you just can't find a replacement for that right now. I mean, there's just been too many injuries this year. There's not enough on the waiver wire. The majority of the prospects coming up that are going to be impactful have already come up.
Well, yeah, that's the thing too, right? If you didn't get one of those, we don't even have one this week, do we? There's no big.
Not that I can think of.
It's like our first one in a while. First week in a while where we're not going to have a big pitcher that everyone's going to be having in focus, mainly in the main event, by the way, or NFBC world, where we talk about you can't pick up a prospect until they're up in the majors. Obviously, certain other leagues work differently, where it's like first come, first serve, you can jump. What about like a Michael Soroka, who is going to be available? He's 77% rostered in the main event. Is he somebody that you would target as a potential sale replacement?
It hurts my soul to say this because, I mean, if you've listened to the pod for years, you know how much I loved Michael Soroka before he first initially got hurt. But no, not really. Soroka's one of those guys that because his strikeout rate is so low, he really needs volume to kind of carry him into fantasy relevance because he needs to be able to get wins because he's going deep enough into games. You know, he's on a great team, so that helps. But I just don't trust the volume, and you don't get the stellar ratios really helping your team unless you're getting a lot of volume. And then he's probably not going to win a lot of games because I don't expect him to go 5 innings a lot of the time. So, I mean, I guess he's, you know, a gamble, a fine gamble. The one's probably not going to hurt you a ton, but
Sure.
he's also not going to help you a ton, I don't think. So he's definitely not a replacement for a guy like Chris Sale.
I got another guy that I'm going to ask you about, but he's in the two steps. I'll point out that this was the guy I was thinking of. But based on what you just said, I can't imagine that you're going to go for this guy either, even though volume was the name of his game at the peak of his powers. We'll get into him later. So right now we're in a holding pattern with Sale. Obviously, by the time Sunday comes and weekly leagues do their moves, hopefully you have some clarity on where Sale is. What would it take? What are you cutting him for? What length
I'm
of
not.
absence would you cut Sale? You
Oh,
wouldn't.
I mean, if he's going to miss, he's
2
going to miss
months?
more than 2 months. Yeah, I think I'm cutting him because, I mean, we're now at the point where we only have June, July, August, September. So 4 months. Anything more than half the remaining season, I think you have to just let go.
What if we get 6 to 8 weeks, which, you know that me, you, Jason, we add time to whatever timetable they give. So is 6 to 8 weeks going to fit that? Where you're like, okay, the upper end is 2 months. We got to assume a couple extra weeks just to be safe. Is 6 to 8 weeks a time where you're going to say, all right, I'm moving on from Sale?
I think quite possibly. I think it really depends on how your team is looking in
Yeah.
terms of other injuries. So
I don't think it's a hard and fast answer. I agree.
yeah, so I mean, for me, like I was coming into this week and I was all like, "Hey, my teams have been relatively healthy. I have dodged the major injuries outside of Drew Musin, you know, pretty darn well." And then like all the injuries happened to my team. So like you know, Cedric Mullins got hurt, TJ Friedel got hurt. There was somebody else who got hurt. Like Lars Nootbaar got hurt. Like I lost like 4 outfielders on my main event team on like Monday. So that's been a little bit brutal. So like if you're in that kind of situation where it's like I'm already holding 3 injury guys, you know, my IL is full.
Yeah.
Then yeah, if it's 6 to 8 weeks, I can totally understand making that cut.
Me too. It just really sucks, man, because things were going so well. And honestly, not even just the fantasy aspect of it. Obviously, I want him to be on the field for my team, but I really like Chris Sale. I think it's nice that he's back and pitching well. And, frankly, he's part of why I've been so wrong on Boston. I was really
Mm-hmm.
concerned about their pitching. It's funny he was the only one I did like. Like I said, I drafted him, but I didn't think that they'd be all that good. And they're in 5th, so you're like, well, what are you talking about? I thought
2
they'd
games
be
above 500 though.
yeah,
Like
I
that's
thought
just
they'd be well below. I thought they'd be decent hitting, but just dreadful pitching besides like Sale and how maybe Bayo if he came out. But I didn't like their bullpen. So yeah, I didn't have them contending at all. And even though they're in 5th, they're in the mix for sure. So we'll wait to see what's going on with Sale. Hopefully we get
they're
some good
only a
news.
half game out of the second wild card because
That's what I'm saying.
all the wild card teams are coming from
They
from
are in
East.
this.
I mean,
They are
outside
in
of
this sucker.
the Angels, man, like they're in this. I mean, this is such an interesting league. 4 teams in the AL West are above 500. 5 teams in the AL East are above 500, and like every team in the AL Central is pretty much below 500, except
Yeah,
for
the Twins are 3
the
games
Twins.
over.
Yeah,
and they've flirted with being around 500 themselves. So East West dominating Central, getting beat up, and I don't know how much that tide is going to turn during the season. Glad that my Tigers are playing better, but the Guardians major disappointment, White Sox major disappointment, Twins minor disappointment because they are still leading, they are still looking good, but they need to get themselves going. They should have a pretty big lead here, and they haven't been able to take advantage.
And the Royals are atrocious.
They're just unbelievably bad.
There were some people who thought the Royals were like a sneaky dark horse team this year. They are not.
They are decidedly not. I thought that of them last year, so didn't jump back on the train this year. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk Jordan Walker. He's returning. Now, obviously, he's going to be somebody that people desire to get. I'm sure he was cut in a lot of shallow leagues, maybe even some deeper leagues, depending on situations, but probably being held in a lot of those deeper formats. Did have 4 homers, 4 steals in 135 plate appearances at AAA, but a pretty underwhelming slash line that netted a 90 WRC plus, including a sub 400 slug for Jordan Walker. Now, I don't know, did you see this clip that was floating around where he was talking about getting back to his old self? On how they had him lifting the ball, and it was really like a concerted effort, and it kind of got him out of his game. And so now he's just going back to doing what he does. When he gets lift, he gets lift. Otherwise, he's just trying to hit the ball hard, and he's getting some better results from it. Did you see that with Jordan Walker?
I didn't, but it makes a lot of sense because I think people are going to look at like the triple slash from AAA and go, oh, why is he coming back? Like he hasn't been good. But if you shorten the time frame to like about the last 2 weeks, you start to go, oh, okay, he's hitting 286, 379, 518 since May 16th. And that comes.
I threw in the 14th, that game too, where he went 3 for 5. And I mean, obviously, it just makes the sample better. But your point is well taken. The last 2 weeks, Jordan Walker's been flowing. So what's going on there?
So I think maybe he's just getting more comfortable. The Cardinals are in a weird spot because they were this team that just had too many pieces, but they've been hit with a little bit of injuries and some underperformances. So I think there is plenty of room for him to come up and play every day. I don't think the Cardinals want him to just come up and sit on the bench. So. If you were able to hold on to him, like I've been able to hold on to him in a number of leagues, then you are super excited for Jordan Walker to come back. If not, you're going to be spending a lot of fab this weekend, and I think he's well worth it. I mean, he's the arguably the top prospect in baseball. Depending on where you put some of the guys that we haven't gotten to see yet and probably won't get to see. But definitely, I think the top prospect remaining still in the minors that we're going to see in 2023.
And that could make a massive impact. Jordan Walker can still be an absolute summer gem. One of those stories where it's like, remember what happened early and he got sent out and then he was winning people leagues down the stretch type of deal. He's only 54% rostered at Yahoo. You have him in our Yahoo league together. He is 100% at the main event. People aren't getting rid of a player like that. That totally makes sense to me. I would have been way more surprised if it was to the other end there.
I'm a little surprised he's not available in any main event league because, I mean, we're in NFBC where you have no IL. You're probably holding on to at least 1 or 2 injured guys already.
But Jordan Walker makes that group of people that you hold, no? I mean, obviously he did because he's 100%.
I mean, I held him in TGFBI.
He would have been for you. He was league, for me. So. Yeah, like we. But I hear you. But
if you're holding on to like guys like, I mean, I know Tyler Glass was back, but he's just the guy that came to mind. A guy like Tyler Glass now who you knew was going to be out for a while, but you couldn't drop him.
Correct.
And you're holding up on to like, and then you get hit with like 2 more injuries. Like it would have made a lot of sense to just drop and move on. And I bet you some people did drop and move on, and then he just got picked back up.
That wouldn't surprise me if we saw that. If we dug in the transaction history and we saw that, he actually was cut in 3, 4, 5 leagues, whatever it is, but people just picked him up really quickly because they're like, I can't let Jordan Walker sit out there. That would make some sense. That would be definitely something I could see. But he's back, and I'm excited. I hope he does well here because it was a bummer. We talked him up a lot in in the offseason saying if he makes the roster, if he's on this team, we think that Jordan Walker can be an absolute stud. So far, we've been wrong, but we still have, you know, 2/3 of the season left to kind of show that we might be right with him, because I still believe in Jordan Walker for sure. All right, let's talk some two steps here. And again, we don't include the automatics. You know, I know somebody like Shane Bieber is not putting up the numbers that we expected or anything, but you're not sitting him in at two step. I certainly don't think so. Justin, you're not sitting him, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. So yeah, we don't include the automatics. There are a couple names on here I do want to see. Do you consider them automatics? Because I'm there with them. So there'll be a few names that I do include to that effect. But for the most part, these are guys that are streamable in a range of leagues, and we're going to say where we would start them, if at all. Let's start with a guy who does have two interesting starts in terms of who he's facing. But I don't know if Tommy Henry for the Arizona Diamondbacks is quite putting up enough skills for you to consider him. He did drop 7 scoreless in his latest with 7 strikeouts against Colorado. And sure, it was Colorado and it was at home for Henry, but still a hell of an outing for Tommy Henry. Is he doing anything for you here? He's got a 3.73 ERA on the year with a trip to Washington and a trip to Detroit on the docket. Is anything doing there for you with Tommy Henry of the Diamondbacks?
I think a lot of people are going to see those two teams and go, oh, these are two really bad teams. I'm going to take advantage, because one of the things, you know, that I talked about with, I don't know why I want to call him Derek Henry, Derek Carty.
He's as good. Derek Carty's as good at what he does as Derek Henry is.
Derek Carty is the Derek Henry of DFS, but
yep.
No, Derek Carty and Michael Simeone at First Pitch Arizona one year, we did a whole presentation on streaming pitchers. And the thing we all kind of found in our research was, like, the best thing to look for in a streaming pitcher is the matchup. Like, you're really looking at the matchup. And these on paper would seem like they would be two really good matchups, but I don't know that they are. One, Washington is a top 5 team against left-handed pitching, and I want to make sure, yes, Tommy Henry is a left-handed pitcher.
Yes,
that's what I thought. And Detroit has played a lot better, I think, than people really think.
100% agree.
As much as I do not think they're a good team,
to be honest,
by the stretch of the imagination, like, they've played much better, especially recently. So, and Tommy Henry is what we would call not good.
He's challenged. Yeah, I mentioned that 3.73 ERA on purpose as kind of a throw off there, because it's a 5.44 Sierra or 5.22 FIP, whatever your ERA indicator of choice is. It's not going to tell a great story on Henry, who's a soft tosser. And one of the things we've been hammering with Washington, not only are they good against lefties, but they don't strike out against anybody, including the lowest strikeout rate against lefties. And Henry already doesn't K anybody. So the ball's going to be in play so much, and it's just a good chance to really get BABIP to death, even though they don't slug the ball that well with Washington. You can get nickeled and dimed by 8 singles and be out of there early still.
Yeah, exactly. There's just not enough upside without Henry's, being able to strike out a bunch of guys to warrant the downside, because he can be homer prone. So I am skipping this one. Let someone else soak up that 2 start.
Yeah, totally agree there. I can't really take that gamble with Tommy Henry at Washington, at Detroit, really in any format. I just don't think the upside is there, as you keyed on. This is one of the guys I'm checking in to see if you've got him starting everywhere all the time. Bryce Elder is home against the Mets and the Nats. He's an everywhere guy for me right now. I don't see where I'm not starting Bryce Elder. The only situation would be in a shallower league where I picked him up thinking that he'd be a streamer. He's become more of a staple, and I just have a good enough rotation that I can't always start all my studs. That's about the only situation I see. And then come 2-step week, I think I still have to get Elder in there over 1-star guys that might be better than him 1-to-1. But I really believe in Elder, and I think I've got him everywhere right now as an automatic start. What say you?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I know there's regression coming. There has to be regression.
Sure.
He's been too good. I mean, and all the ERA indicators say, like, there's regression coming at some point, but it's not Tommy Henry level regression. No. So, like, it's hey, he's probably more of a high 3s kind of pitcher, maybe even a low 4s kind of a pitcher. not a 4.50 or 5 ERA type pitcher.
Yeah,
So
he has a sub 2 ERA right now.
yeah,
Bryce
he's
Elder
just
does.
been insane. I think this is a great time to sell high if you can, but
Sure.
like I know I'm in a dynasty league where like no one who is competing like will even like touch like starting pitching, especially guys like Bryce Elder. So like it's pretty frustrating in those situations where you're trying to sell high and everybody's like, no, I'm not buying it.
Like,
It's like you're
nah,
just
we see through that. But again, I think the regression for Elder is still a guy that you want to have, even if he was a
yeah.
380 ERA from here forward with a
That's
good whip
valuable
on
in
a strong team.
today's
Yes.
like right now when you've got like league ERAs for starters around 4.50 or something like that, like a guy who's going to throw you a 3.75 ERA rest of the season is still pretty valuable. But
Totally agree. So yeah, I love him. He's 85% at Yahoo. I think that should be up at 100. I really do. What about our boy Cal Gibson? Look at him at Milwaukee, home to KC. He's as volatile as he's ever been in terms of he's dropping gems against teams you don't expect, getting blasted by duds where you like him. Sometimes he is adhering to being a perfect stream. He takes on a crummy team and beats them. But I mean, he went to Toronto and New York, the Yankees, put up 14 innings with just 1 run allowed, gets Cleveland, who is like one of the worst teams in the league right now, and was an out shy of a baseline quality start, which is an okay start if you streamed it. But coming off the 14 innings with 1 earned total at the Jays and Yankees, we were expecting more. So he is frustrating in that sense. In fact, it goes even further. You just look at his whole May, and what a nightmare for Kyle Gibson. Okay, I'm going to stream him at KC. 6 earned and 6 2/3. Well,
then there's no way you're not going to use, or no way you're going to use him at Tampa, right?
Like, yeah, and I got to take him out for Tampa then. Okay, 6 innings, 2 runs for Kyle Gibson. Okay, fine, he's back on. I'm going to get him in for Pittsburgh. 5 innings, 4 runs. Then the Blue Jays and Yankees games I told you about, and then the Cleveland one. So super frustrating. Overall, there's still elements here that were like, okay, 389 ERA, 131 WHIP. That's in line with kind of what I expected. But an 8% strikeout minus walk. Trip to Milwaukee, home to KC. Is that enough to get you on the Cal Gibson train this week? If so, what leagues?
I mean, I feel like if you can't use him for this 2-step, when are you ever going to use him?
Of course, but then just leave him on the wire, though, right? This isn't a guy that's on your roster necessarily. Are you aiming at getting Gibson in a 15-team league for this 2-step?
I think so. If he's available in one of my 15-team leagues, I think I'll take the gamble. Kansas City is not a good team. They've had stretches where they've put some hurt on some clubs, but for overall, they're just not a very good offense. And Milwaukee's pretty good against righties, though. So I mean, that's
not the last 30 days. Sorry, I'm going off because I do last 30 on my pitching chart, and I saw them low. Yeah, they're 26.
Well, Mr. Fancy.
Well, it's just last 30 days, so it's not guaranteed either. I grant that. And on the full season, they do rank higher, but like they've been susceptible at times. So I'm with you. I think I would stream Kyle Gibson this week. I know the risk. We've been on the Kyle Gibson train for years. We're very familiar with him. He's probably the most enduring meme on this show. But yeah, I think he does make the list this week as far as considerations.
I agree. Yeah.
What about James Paxton at Cleveland and at the Yankees? You love the Cleveland one, the Yankees one, not so much. Big name, obviously was a hot ticket when he first came back. Has settled a bit to where it's like, okay, this isn't an automatic, Big Maple peak of his powers, Big Maple. But I think the bad start, the one at the Angels, was one that you should have avoided anyway. Don't mess with the Angels. Other than that, it's 3 good starts around that. Is James Paxton above a streaming option to where he's a team streamer or even just an automatic start right now? Or is there still some sketchiness with him that would give you some pause even in a 2-step week at Cleveland and at the Yankees? Where do you stand currently on James Paxton?
I think the Cleveland start is juicy enough where he should probably be just an auto start. And it's not like the Yankees have been great offensively this year. And there has been like some pushback to me saying at times like, hey, the Yankees are an offense that I don't want to mess with. I still believe they're an offense I don't want to mess with. Even if they're not playing well as a team, like there are pieces to that Yankees offense that are scary as hell.
Anytime you got Judge,
yeah, Judge,
you're a threat.
Volpe's been a really, really interesting guy, even though he hasn't hit for batting average at a lot of times during the season. Glaber's still good.
Rizzo's been excellent, by the way. Bader was killing it, but got hurt again. Huge surprise. God, it's so frustrating. I feel bad for him, but man,
he's just snake bit, dude. He's just one of those guys that can't stay healthy. So
yep.
While the Yankees aren't necessarily on paper as a team like a lineup you should be afraid of, like I'm still afraid of them. That being said, like you mentioned, Paxton's pretty good outside of that one really, really bad start. I think my major concern with Paxton is like, is he going to go deep enough into a game?
Yeah,
to win.
Always the consideration there.
But I think I'm going with it. Cleveland's been a bottom 5 team against left-handed pitching. Yankees have been like middle of the pack against left-handed pitching. So I'm fine rolling with Paxton pretty much in every format.
Yeah, me too. And I think he should be rostered in most formats too. I really do think that Paxton's a guy that has some juice here. Don't let the one bad start fool you. He's only 32% rostered at Yahoo. I think that's well short of where James Paxton should be. Here's the guy I was going to talk about with regards to, oh God, who were we talking about? I'm so dumb. Oh, Soroka, Kyle Hendricks. In that volume is the name of his game, but is he trustable for that volume that we've seen? He's just gotten back, but he gets a West Coast, Southern California two-step there at San Diego. Actually, San Francisco's not Southern California, sorry. But he going to California for 2 at San Francisco, at San Diego. You back in on the Kyle Hendricks train. He's had, what, 1 start back or 2?
2.
2 starts back.
And good, good enough results. 3.86 ERA, a 6.66 xERA though.
Devilish. Yeah, the strikeouts, the walks are relatively high. 5 walks in the 2 starts. That's really high for Kyle Gibson or for Kyle.
But no home runs given up for Hendricks as of yet. This screams you're about to get some major regression very, very, very quickly. But these are also 2 good parks to pitch in. San Francisco and San Diego are great places to pitch. You're not super worried necessarily about either lineup, considering the pieces that San Diego's missing, and the Giants are just the Giants. But the Giants have actually been pretty good against right-handed pitching this year. So right. I'm not going for this, but there are going to be people like he will be one of the more we will talk about him on Monday or
Tuesday. Yeah.
Maybe we won't talk about, I don't know if we'll talk about pickups this is going to be on Tuesday, but he will be one of the more picked up guys. I think it's a mistake. I think he's going to get shellacked in at least 1, maybe 2 of these starts. I've loved Kyle Hendricks previously. I've had a love-hate relationship with Kyle Hendricks. I hated him for a really, really long time, and then I finally bought in, and then he burned me. Screw Kyle Hendricks. I'm not going for this.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a consideration for 15s for sure. He's nowhere near the top of my list, but if I got him, I'd probably start him. I mean, if I put him on my list, but I don't love it. I've never really been the biggest Kyle Hendricks fan, so I'd be hard pressed to be super confident about this.
This is a Kyle Freeland situation for me, where like I won't even put him on my list, so I am not tempted at all.
You don't accidentally get him.
I don't want him. Like I don't want to be like going to set my lineups Monday morning and be looking like, oh man, it's Kyle Hendricks in a 2-step, or I don't know, random, good pitcher. Oh man, I'll take the 2-step, just try to get 2 wins, and all of a sudden I get shellacked twice.
That's the thing. The downside is pretty rich here with Hendricks, unfortunately, and that used to not really be the case. Floor was the name of his game with upside, and I'm not sure we've seen it. Another Cub is going, and the reason I split them up is because they don't have the same matchups. That Monday game against San Diego is a wraparound game for Hendricks. Hayden Wesneski gets a California trip too. They're on a whole California swing, and he gets Anaheim, he gets the Angels, and San Francisco. So he's back. Loved this guy coming into the year. It has not panned out anywhere to the level that I thought. He's been sent down. His numbers don't look very good. But are you back in on Hayden Wesneski if he gets this? I mean, it's penciled in right now. It's not a lock, but looks like he's back and starting. Are you back in on Hayden Wesneski with a two-step Angels and Giants?
Oh, so I had him as a backup bid last week in Fab for $1 in a few spots and got him. And this was prior to the news that he was getting recalled. And
I like
so,
that.
yeah, I got a little bit lucky in terms of picking him back up in a lot of the places where I had dropped him and other people had dropped him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'm starting him versus the Angels, though.
That's the scary part.
The Angels are just what they just did to Lance Lynn, like single-handedly gave back all those gains I'd made in my ratios and leagues. They're too scary of a lineup, I think, for me to want to. And like we mentioned, like the Giants have been a pretty good offense against right-handed pitching this year. So I think I'm trying to skip, but I do want to pick up Wesneski where available.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot where I can advocate picking up, but not starting, even though it's a two-step, because I still have some love. I really, really liked Wesneski coming into the year. Again, it has definitely not worked thus far, but it's an opportunity to pick somebody up. This is kind of in that same vein as well. It's a little bit different than the Jake McCarthy. Actually, no, kind of similar. Jake McCarthy probably the more expensive version of this, but a guy that with McCarthy, I didn't love his draft price, but then getting back in via waiver wire, I was definitely in on. Wesneski, I did love drafting him, but things have soured. He's getting cut. The spots I missed him, I'm interested in going back to the well here. So I agree with the pickup. I might not start because the Angels absolutely terrify me as well. So I think that's totally fair, deep league or not, with Hayden Wesneski. Let's move on to Luke Weaver, Milwaukee and at St. Louis. Now, he hasn't really done much since those 8 strikeout games, and even those had some flaws in them. Just curious if you're seeing even any deep league appeal. Let's go beyond 15s. Is that even enough for you to get Luke Weaver going? Is he an NL only guy for you? Anything you see here, or is he just far too volatile?
I think he's far too volatile. I just don't know that you want to make the gamble. I mean, he's been decent enough. Like he hasn't, 5 2/3 at Boston with 5 strikeouts and 3 earned runs. Like that's fine. It's the 2 home runs that scare the crap out of me. And again, Milwaukee is not a team that is super comfortable to pitch against if you're a right-hander. If you're a lefty, you want to attack Milwaukee, but right-hander not so much. And St. Louis is just a team I'm scared of all the time. Like I know they haven't been a great offense. They haven't been the top 5 offense I thought they were going to be, but they've been better. They now got Jordan Walker back, so I think I'm sitting this one out on Luke Weaver.
Yeah, they're 15 and 13 during the month as well. 5.4 runs per game. Weaver, the home run rate, he has more homers than walks. Too scary. I passed here. I don't even pick this up. Dinelson Lamet is back in the rotation. Do I dare even ask you this?
No,
they're both at home. I know.
No,
just making sure.
I mean, you could do this. Yeah, you could do this one on Jupiter. I would not be.
Yeah, no. There's absolutely no world. Even if they weren't at home, no.
I mean, how many innings per start? I mean, his last start or his first start, he went 3 innings.
That's the thing too. He's being stretched out, but even at the peak of whatever Dinelson Lamet's going to be this year. No.
You know where Dinelson Lamet is a great place to start is if you're in a dynasty league where you're rebuilding and you're trying to tank your ratios
to get a good pick. Yes, he's a great tank start. I agree. Let's move on to Alex Faedo, who actually is doing some nice things for the Tigers. He's got a trip to Philly and home to Arizona coming up. There's been some swing and miss element in his game this year that is definitely new at the major league level. We saw Faedo last year, and he didn't really bring his minor league skills with him because he's missed bats in the minors. This year, everything's kind of cooking. It's 26 innings, so we don't want to overdo it, but 25% K rate, 2% walk rate, 12% swinging strike. Is a bit of a home run issue there because he's living in the zone with that 2% walk rate. So it's a 2.1 homer per 9. But is there enough here from Faedo that has you interested in the former prospect for the Tigers?
I think volatility probably has me out in Faedo, especially when you're going to Philly. I think I'm passing. I can understand making the argument for him, and maybe you will, but I think it's too volatile. Like he's given up 6 home runs already, though. Only 2 home runs in his last 3 starts, but he's gotten like batted around in some of the outings.
Texas
where
murked him. Texas absolutely smoked him. 7 hits, 6 runs, but I mean 7 hits and a walk, so 6 of the 8 scored. That's kind of an unlucky rate. I don't know. I am going to make the case, not just because I'm a Tigers fan. I think there's enough here. You look at the 5.54 ERA, but then a 3.47 SIERA. The home run rate is concerning for sure. And you face a team like Philly, that definitely scares me a bit in Philly. Arizona, I respect them too.
Yeah,
I think that they're obviously a really good ball club. I've been in on the Baby Snakes coming into the year too. So it's scary, but he makes my list, and he makes my list as more. You talked about maybe not even putting Kyle Hendricks on your list because you don't want to get stuck with him. If I quote unquote got stuck with Faedo, if he was the guy I won on my list, I'd be okay with it. He's not my top target, but I think there's enough heat here that I could go for this in a 2-start if I'm open to that sort of streaming that comes with the inherent risk of week-to-week streaming. Okay. All right. Brandon Bielak for Houston gets a trip to Toronto and a trip to Cleveland. So, kind of the old 1 up, 1 down there. They're both on the road, which can be nerve-wracking because, you're just generally better at home overall. He's shown a few things, 3.19 ERA, but a 1.45 whip. That whip says you should heed the 4.44 SIERA a bit more. Also has a home run issue. That's been a common theme for a lot of these streamable guys, and that can make them particularly scary because that's the quickest way to blow up an ERA. I say it all the time with home runs, but he's been better of late. He's only allowed 7 earned runs in his last 4 combined. Is Brandon Bielak doing enough for you that you're going to give him consideration here at Toronto and at Cleveland?
This was a difficult one because Bielak has had some pretty interesting starts, but he's gotten super, super lucky in terms of his strand rate. His strand rate is over 90% this year. Like you mentioned, he's got quite a bit of a homer problem, though. To be fair, half of his home runs this year were given up in 1 game at Milwaukee. Again, pointing out that Milwaukee can lay the wood on to some right-handed pitchers. I don't know. This is it's a tantalizing 2-start because you get that at Cleveland at the end of the week, but the beginning of the week is at Toronto, a team that can hit a bunch of home runs very, very quickly. I think it's a pretty risky gamble. I think he's a guy who's going to be on my list in leagues where he's still available, just because I think it's Bielak for me.
Better team? Is that why the team context?
The better team, pitcher. And then I think they're about the same in terms of skill, but like that Cleveland start to me is like, okay, here we go.
That's the juiciest of the 4.
Yeah,
right? The at Philly, home to Arizona, at Toronto, at Cleveland. Of those 4 for Faedo and Bielak, it's far and away the best.
Yeah, so I think you can make the argument that at Toronto versus at Philly are about the same.
Sure.
So give me the better of the other 2. So at Cleveland versus Arizona, I'll take the at Cleveland over that.
I'll put Bielak ahead then too for the same reason. That's a good call. Guys that you're going to go for if you're ready to stream, the risk. There is risk with both of them, but they both make the list, and Bielak is slightly ahead of Faedo. What about Mike Myers here for Kansas City? Yes, this is the reliever that was with the Angels a couple years ago. I think he was with KC last year. And got some starts, but
he was with Angels last year.
Okay, he was still with the Angels. Okay, so he's been with the Angels forever. This is his first year with KC. He's penciled in to be a 2-step. I don't know if this is 100% or not, but as it stands right now, it'd be a trip to Miami and a trip to Baltimore. is there enough here? It's a 17% strikeout minus walk. It's 13 innings. I don't want to go overboard with it. I don't know what we can really expect out of Mike Myers as a starter. I don't think the 96% left on base rate is going to hold. But what do you think of Mike Myers here? Is there a deep enough league where you would start Myers for KC?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, these are two pretty decent starts. Like, Baltimore has been a better team, but they're now without, their heart and soul of Cedric
Best player
Mullins.
in the league, yes, and the entertainer.
So, and then at Miami, you're not afraid of that one. And he's been really good. Please let Josh Stallman be the opener for him again, because he came in and just delivered 6 just amazing innings.
See, that would be perfect if we could get confirmation that Myers actually isn't going to start, but rather get an opener. And he went 6 scoreless at St. Louis, like you're saying. And then the one start he does have was 4 2/3, 1 run, 8 strikeouts against Detroit.
Yeah.
So we've seen 2 good outings in a row from Myers. I think I can get in on this. I agree with you. Both venues are wonderful to pitch in. Neither team particularly scary. Baltimore definitely a bit scarier, but without Mullins, that certainly hurts. I think Myers makes the list here.
I agree.
Stay tuned all weekend to make sure that he's still penciled in and everything. But as it stands,
also don't freak out if he's not penciled in, because they might, especially if you see like a random reliever projected to be the starter, because he should then be the follower coming in.
Exactly, and some teams have been good about outlining that. Others kind of make you think like this Josh Stallman starting, and then you see that, like you said.
Yeah, when he came up, I was like, "What? Stallman starting? That's the weird."
Why are they converting him? Nope, they're just doing a lot of openers. All right, let's talk about an old. I swear this is not an old list. This guy is up. Julio Teheran, the very same, is with Milwaukee right now. And he put up some decent surface numbers in the minors. And, the other way. He put up some good skills, bad results. 5.63 ERA, 1.68 whip in 8 starts in the minors, but a 16% strikeout minus walk, which is pretty decent. However, he was just far too hittable, and that was really the problem. He has 11 innings in the majors so far with an 0.82 ERA and whip. It's totally fraudulent, though, because he has not allowed a homer and just way too low of a BABIP at 222. So I can't really buy into that right now with a 10% strikeout minus walk. But I wonder if you take the composite of everything we've seen out of Teheran in his career, would you be willing to sustain a trip to Cincy to get the home start against Oakland? That's really what you're weighing here, because obviously that's the classic 1 up, 1 down with Teheran. Do you dare put this on your list?
I think he's gonna be on my list.
I think he kind of has to.
It's scary as hell, though. He's only allowed one walk. He's so far in his 11 innings. He hasn't allowed a home run, like you mentioned. And these are 2 pretty juicy matchups. Cincinnati's always a scary place to go pitch, but the Reds are beat up. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think I'm rolling with Julio Teheran.
I can't believe I am, but I mean, he's gonna make the list, and he's gonna be around that, Myers, Bielak, Faedo.
I have Julio Teheran in that 30-team 100-man roster.
Incredible that you
have. Because he was like the only, like at the end of the free agency period for that league. And for those who don't know, that league is like set up like Major League Baseball with contracts and things. It's just like, and it's just crazy. And there's nobody available. Like, there's just nobody picked up. And so I put, a little bit of money on Julio Teheran before he had a major league contract. And now he's like a mainstay in my rotation because there's just nobody there. So, we'll see if it works out.
I love it.
I need to flip him now. Yeah. So.
Or just get a good 2-step and then get the hell out, because who knows? You know what's crazy about this though? He's only 32.
I know.
I'm sure when I brought him up, some people were like, "Oh, he's 35, 36." He's only 32 years old. So I mean, he's throwing 90 these days. He's not the Julio Teheran of his prospect days, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to piece something together. We haven't seen good skills at the majors for a while. I mean, it's been a good while, to be honest, too. His last 3 years in Atlanta, 17 through 19, was a combined 11%, 10% strikeout minus walk across 538 innings. That's not good. And then the years since, the sparse opportunities with the Angels, Tigers, and Brewers haven't been any better, with a 4% strikeout minus walk in 47 innings. So keep that in mind, but he's going to make the list because I think the Oakland start is tantalizing enough for me. Louie Varland is somebody that I'm pretty interested in starting everywhere. I'm certainly interested in rostering him everywhere. This is a devastating two-step with trips to Toronto and Tampa Bay. So it's really difficult to feel super confident in him. I will say, leagues where I already have him, there's a good chance I'm starting him because I believe in Louie Varland. But where I'm picking him up, it might be a pickup and hold situation as opposed to a pickup and start because of these matchups. I'm getting early career Bailey Ober vibes out of Varland, with the really good skills, but a home run issue that is certainly scary, particularly against these two matchups. But I like so much of what he's done. Like I said, there are still some scenarios where I'm starting him, but if I'm picking him up, I'm probably just trying to stash him. What do you think of Louie Varland, and is he somebody you're going for?
He's definitely not someone I'm going for. I have been on the opposite end of the spectrum on Louie Varland than you. The homers scare the crap out of me. I think that's only going to get worse. He's got a 90% strand rate right now. A BABIP that's like, oh, that should probably regress a little bit as well. He's doing a good job of not walking guys. So as long as he does that, at least the home runs or solo shots. But I do worry that it's just this homer problem is going to be really, really pesky for him rest of the way. So I've been wrong so far on Varland, even though I've had these same thoughts the entire time. But I still believe in the fact that he can't give up 2 homers per 9 and expect to be successful in fantasy for us. So
that will be tough. I agree, but I'm absolutely picking up Varland, even if it's to not use him this week. I will.
Yeah, you cannot use him. Not at Tampa, at Toronto. Like
I don't
you
think
cannot
it's
use him.
as no go as he just threw 7 shutout in Houston. He threw a baseline quality start against Toronto. He went 5 innings, 2 runs against at the Angels on May 20th. Those are his last 3 starts. There's a lot to like here with Varland. I think
you start him. You start him.
I'm
not
going to.
Yeah.
I'm going to start him. Like I said, and the reason I distinguish between where I'm picking him up and versus where I have him is, I'm assuming where I pick him up, my rotation isn't as good or is better than it is on the leagues where I've already got Varland. That's why I made the distinction of, like, if I've already got him, I'm probably going to keep starting him. If I'm picking him up, hopefully my rotation's set to where I don't have to use him. But I'm not out completely on this, even with trips to Tampa Bay and Toronto. So we'll revisit this one next week, and we'll see who came out on top with Louie Varland. But I like him. He's probably at the top of my pickups right now, as far as looking at this list. Unless you absolutely need somebody you can trust next week, then it's a little different. But if you're picking up for some luxury, I'll definitely go for him. 25% at Yahoo, super available. What about Carlos Carrasco? Trip to Atlanta, trip to Pittsburgh, so double road, but one is good. Listen, I love the early Pittsburgh stuff, but their offense has been absolutely dreadful in May. They're 8-18 overall, and so I can't get too caught up in saying that they're a great team with 3.2 runs per game, even though they're still second in their division. They're still over 500, but that's the good start this week for Carrasco. Is it enough to take on the Braves at the Braves? Have you seen enough recently from Carrasco that you're going to jump in here? Because the composite numbers are rough, and I want to say a couple of his last few starts. Yeah, his last 2 starts have been really good.
Yeah, his last 2 starts have been really good. The only problem is there are no more strikeouts.
Yeah, 4 in both of them across 12 and 2/3 for Carrasco.
And 19 total strikeouts across 31 1/3 innings this year. Like, that is putrid.
That's why he has 4% strikeout minus walk.
Yeah, I don't think the risk is worth the upside at this point in Carrasco's career. So
I agree.
I know Pittsburgh hasn't been good since, offensively hasn't been great since the beginning of the season, like you mentioned. But Atlanta's a damn good offense, and I'm not messing with that.
So let's pivot a little bit on Carrasco.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take you to a daily league situation where you can just use the Pittsburgh start.
Mm-hmm.
What format, if any, would you pick them up just to use at Pittsburgh?
Maybe 15s.
Okay.
12s, I think you could probably find better options.
Yeah, I think so as well. But if you can play in a daily where you do not have to take the Atlanta trip, maybe take the Pittsburgh trip, it's got to be deeper league. I can't believe this next guy's on the list. We're staying in New York, but I think I have to. At least have to see where you're at. Maybe you say, I'm not even touching him as far as taking him out of the lineup. He's still an auto start for me, and I'll listen to that. But Nestor Cortes has not been Nestor Cortes this year. Not the guy that everyone drafted. 5.16 ERA, 130 WHIP. The strikeout minus walk rate is down 4 points to 16%, which is decent. It's above league average. But as has been the case with so many of these guys that we're talking about, the home runs are up at 1.5 homer per 9, as well as the hits. And he was already living on a bit of a fine margin. It's not that what he was doing was fraudulent these last 2 years. It's that there wasn't a lot of margin for error, and we see a slight drop off in strikeout minus walk. The hits are back up, the homers are up, and voila, he is now a big problem pitcher. Are you scared enough of Nestor Cortes, or did he do enough in 21-22 that you're staying bought in and trusting him to shave these numbers back down? Where do you stand? Oh, no, let me give you the matchups too. Sorry. It's the White Sox and Boston, both at home for Cortes.
This one's really frustrating because, I'd been really worried about him. And then the last couple starts, you went, oh man, the slider's back. Like he's looking really, really good. And then, so I write in a buy low article for Fantasy Pros, and I'm all like, yeah, here we go. Time to buy low on Nestor Cortes. It gets published earlier this week. And then he goes and faces, he's at Seattle, a team that has struggled this year versus left-handed pitching. And the slider does not look good. And now I'm like, oh, great. Like I
buy back in.
Yeah, right when I'd like telling everybody you should buy low on Nestor Cortes, he goes back to being the guy he was at the beginning of the season. So I'm very concerned. I don't know that you can pass up a two-step that includes Chicago, who has just been kind of mediocre all year.
At best.
Yeah, and Boston is a good offense, but they're better against righties than they are against lefties.
That's true. They do scare me though.
They do scare me too. So I think I'm rolling with this one, but it's really a lot of blind faith and not a lot of like hard hitting analysis that has me going with it.
That's fair. So, and you're being honest about it too, right? That is the case sometimes. That I just start a guy and they're like, well, why are you starting him? I say, I just kind of believe in him, and I apologize that it's not numbers based. You don't have to follow me on that. I feel like as long as I let people know that that is what I'm going with, I'm literally going with the gut. Shouts to Vlad Sedler. Then I feel comfortable as long as people understand that that's where my analysis is. And I get that with Cortes, where you just kind of want to trust and say, I think this guy's still good, but I'm a bit worried. I think if you got him, you have to start him. Otherwise, he's a cut. I do think he does fit our rule of if you're not using him in a two-step, you don't need to be holding him. So if you're that shaky on it, consider cutting Cortes. But I think you go with it here and you just see where we're at.
Yeah, I'm not ready to cut. I'm still like, even if I'm not using him this week, I'm not cutting.
When are you ever starting him then if you're not using him this week though? That's the whole
maybe
thing
next week
with the two-step. Looks like he would set up for a trip to Boston next week.
Oh Jesus!
They only got a 5-gamer, so he gets to Boston.
Pitching in the AL East sucks.
It's not fun. Even with the fewer games in division, it's still difficult.
This is what we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, right? Like the AL East is stacked. Like when Boston's the worst team in that division, and they are top 10 in offense against right-handers and left-handers this year. So
that's crazy. I hear you. It's not a hard fast rule. It's not a hard fast.
I think in 10-team leagues, I can understand the argument, but even in 10-team leagues, those wires get pretty thin considering IL spots and just the amount of injuries there's been this year.
You could pick up Louie Varland, who is definitely good.
There you go.
What about JP Sears? Trips to Pittsburgh and Milwaukee. A lot of guys going on the road twice this week for the two steps here. JP Sears, I know he's on Oakland, so the win probability is in the ground. You cannot see it. Put that aside. If you just, if you need wins, obviously it's hard to go with anybody on a crappy team like this. But if you're just looking for some quality ratios with some Ks and maybe a spike a win, he's 0-3 on the year, so he doesn't even get decisions, by the way, because he probably leaves with a lead and then they promptly blow it. But his last four, JP Sears, 2.42 ERA with in 22 and a third innings. Ks are light because the last two have been really putrid. 3 total strikeouts in 11 innings, but 13 strikeouts in the 11 innings before that against Texas and Houston. So he's shown some good throughout the year. There's been some downside, and a lot of times it's home run related. I don't get too scared of at Pittsburgh, at Milwaukee here. I think I'm going for Sears, picking him up. What say you with JP Sears? Is he 12 team viable, 15 team? Would you go as low as 10? What do you say?
The worst team in Major League Baseball against left-handed pitching is Milwaukee Brewers. So I think this is the pick up of the week right here. I think this is the guy that nobody's expecting you to pick up in your 10 and 12 team leagues that you should start him. If you're win seeking, I understand going a different direction because, like you mentioned, he's not going to get wins because it's the A's. The A's are the worst team in baseball, and like I heard Jim Bowden on some program, whether it's Sirius or whatever, say something along the lines of he thinks that they would not be a competitive team in AAA right now.
I mean, that's as a
and
GM,
that's hyper.
Should know how dumb that is,
and he should. I don't know that he's wrong though, because this may be the worst major league team ever built.
It's really bad, by the way. And you've been nice about not taking a million victory laps, but last year when we argued about them, I was like, well, they don't usually bottom out like bottom of the barrel, bottom. That's what they're doing.
You have to remove the floor to find them. That's how bottomed out they've become.
Correct.
Like they are like
fake floor, and you pull out the little drop.
You need to like search the Earth's crust to find the
Earth's core. You need to go deep. The crust is the top there. You need to get into the Earth's core to find this fucking team. That's
the Journey to the Center of the Earth is a book written about the 2023 Oakland A's.
It really is. No, they're so bad, it's unbelievable. But I do like JP Sears. I am picking him up. I am starting him. And by the way, we did carve out that whole thing, like if you're win chasing, but it is still June 2nd. You can't be that desperate to where I would pass up Sears. You might prioritize better win potentials ahead of him, but I would still pick him up even if your win is desperate.
I think it's more for like if you are in like a head-to-head league, right? You're only worried about this week. You're looking at your team and you're going, oh, all my starters right now are 1-start guys, and so I might be a little bit low on win potential. That kind of win seeking. Yeah, I mean, that's like fair. You mentioned, for the most part, unless you are like at the bottom of your standings in a roto league and wins, you're probably not super concerned because a week where you get 7 wins, like all of a sudden you just bust up the standings. Like
exactly. And there is still a world where you might cop a win here. We're not saying you can't. We're just saying that the chances
like I said, Milwaukee is one of the worst teams in baseball against left-handed pitching, and Pittsburgh is not great offensively. So.
Correct. I think that's fair. So JP Sears, I like him. He's been on my bench for a bit in main event right now, and he's getting in the lineup this week for sure. Johan Oviedo is going to square off against Sears in that first game. So he gets Oakland and then the Mets at home. Is the Oakland start worth it to take on the Mets, who haven't been powerhouses, but they're still a good team? You're still rightly nervous of them. What do you think of Johan Oviedo, who's shown some flashes but still has some uneven skills if you look at the total profile?
I like Oviedo. I think he's a guy that I think he's a really good pitcher that is still kind of trying to figure things out.
Couldn't agree more.
So, and I think these are 2 really good starts. I mean, the Mets have not been great offensively this year. They've been very uneven themselves. Oakland, like we mentioned, is just atrocious. So I think this is a really good 2-step to take a gamble on Oviedo, probably only in a 15-team league, but if you want to get tricky in a 12, I can see doing that.
Yep. Co-sign all of that, like Oviedo. Still think there's major upside here that we might see him tap into this summer. It might be next year, though, but I do think he's a viable streamer in a situation like this. Blake Snell is certainly on a higher level than a lot of the guys we mentioned in terms of hanging on to him and starting him week to week. And he's coming off of 2 good starts in a row, 11 innings with just 1 earned, 13 strikeouts, but 7 Ks in that time. That's kind of the Blake Snell experience. The reason I put him on the list this week, though, is because he's got the Cubs at home, but then a trip to Colorado. Are you still starting Snell in, say, 10s and 12s? I'll ask 15s as well. I think I'm pretty good in 15s. I'm still starting Snell, but I wonder if you're starting him in the middle and shallower formats with Colorado on the docket.
No.
No dice?
Not at Colorado. Like,
What about 15s? You starting him there?
No.
Okay, so you're a full sit
Yeah,
on Snell. I don't think that's out of pocket to say that, by the way.
He has been better in his last 2 starts, but we're also talking about 2 starts at Washington, at Miami. Like, these are not teams you're afraid of offensively. So
we have talked up Washington against lefties in this very pod, so we probably shouldn't completely contradict ourselves. But with a guy like Snell, we expect him to steamroll Washington and Miami, regardless of how they're doing. And he did do well, 11 innings, 1 run, but it still came with
7 walks.
Like
yeah.
So that's my concern there.
Yeah, and there's no way I'm starting him at Colorado. I'm just not going to do it.
I mean, there's 15s where I think you're going to have to. There's plenty of 15 scenarios.
I mean, I won't have to because I don't have him anyway.
Not you, but like where people that have him are probably going to have to.
On the plus side, he's like, on pace for like an innings count this year that is much higher than he's put up in recent years. My biggest argument against him was I couldn't project him for more than 130 innings, but the skills have just been atrocious.
It has been rough there. The walks are just becoming untenable, especially when paired with homers. So it does make him scary with Blake Snell, and especially with the trip to Colorado on the docket. I understand the concerns for sure. I think I'm starting him in some deeper formats, but I'm trying to avoid it. I don't want to take the Colorado start on, so I would sit him. This is an exception for me where I would not start in a 2-step, but not cut either. I would try to keep Blake Snell. And if I'm going to skip the Colorado start. What about this guy with a trip to Colorado? Alex Wood. He opens the week going to Colorado and then gets the Cubs after. So he gets Snell's same setup, just in reverse. Is Alex Wood doing enough that you would take on a Colorado start?
I like Alex Wood, but you just never know what you're going to get from him start to start in terms of how deep he's going to go into games. And then you add in a Colorado start, and I'm passing.
Yep. I don't need to expound any further on that. Totally agree. Let's see. Moving on to our next guy would be Martín Pérez. He has not held what he did last year, but he's still finding some success kind of in his old smoke and mirrors type of way. Is he doing enough that with Martín Pérez with a home start against St. Louis and a trip to Tampa Bay? I guess I didn't see the second start until just now, so I don't even know if I have to ask this.
No.
But is there any way you're starting Martín Pérez with Tampa Bay on the docket? Or St. Louis, by the way, because, again, they're still scary even though they've underperformed this year.
Yeah, St. Louis is a top 10 team versus left-handed pitching this year. The Tampa Bay is the top team versus left-handed pitching this year. Pass. Yeah.
Hard pass for Martín.
Even as a guy who's been like the Martín Pérez guy in the past, like there's no way I'm starting. No. I would rather start Blake Snell in Colorado.
I'd rather start Blake Snell in Colorado for 2 than take this Martín Pérez shot right here. Totally agree with that. I can't believe this guy's on the list. I said that about Nestor Cortes earlier. I am exponentially more floored that I've had to put this guy on a "Are you starting?"
Yeah, I'm surprised you put him on this list, considering we don't put studs on the list and we don't put automatic
no's. Obvious no's.
Yeah.
Oh God, people are gonna die when I say the name. It's Alek Manoah. And speaking of dying, if you have him on your team, you want to, because it's been a nightmare. 542, 177 ERA whip, and I cannot find an item of hope in this statistical profile for you. The only thing I got for you is the name and the track record. Are you starting Alek Manoah, home to Houston and Minnesota, 2 top teams, at least in terms of performance this year? I don't know their exact rankings against righties, but they're good ball clubs, and he's been horrendous. Are you still in on Manoah? This is one of your boys.
Yeah, the only thing I have for people on Alek Manoah is an apology. I'm sorry. Like
How could you have known though? This is a nightmare.
This is like, I know that there were people who were like, "Hey, he's gonna regress," but there is no one was projecting this.
No.
Like, everybody still had him as a top 25 starter.
Yeah. I thought he could be mid. I thought he'd be like mid upper threes ERA with a good whip, plenty of wins, plenty of Ks.
Yeah.
Like, I had my concerns, and this is a guy I've debated with my heart versus head because I did see some warning signs, but I love Alek Manoah, and I still ranked him super high. I'm not acting like I saw anything like this. This is a shock for even his biggest haters. This is insane what Manoah's going through. He's terrible right now.
Yeah, I know, like, Nick Paul like had him outside of, I think, the top 25 to start the year, and so like he was one of the people who were like, he was really scared and was never gonna get him at price, right?
Yeah.
But even him, like, he still had him as a top like 30 starter. Like, it's just like,
so I mean, this
is an L for everyone. It's just a bigger L for me. And if you drafted Alek Manoah based on my advice, then I'm sorry. That's all I can say. Like, I am there with you. I have teams where he is my number 1 or my number 2 starter, and he is wrecking me.
You were big on Manoah.
He's on my bench. I haven't had the heart to drop him yet, but like, if you drop Alek Manoah, I have no problem with that at this point.
He's 82% rostered at Yahoo, so we're starting to see.
His last 3 starts, he has given up 92% zone contact or worse.
Jeez.
He is just hittable like you wouldn't. Like, there is nothing in the profile right now. I don't know what's wrong with him. Like, it doesn't seem like he's hurt, but like, he should be on the IL just to get, or in the minor leagues at this point, just to get things right.
Mental breather, right?
Yeah.
It is really bad.
And, some people had kind of alleged earlier in the season, like, oh, maybe it's the pitch clock, maybe because he's a bigger guy. I don't think that's it. Something's wrong with him. And I don't know if it's mental or maybe there's a grip issue or an injury we don't know about that he's just trying to pitch through. But he's broken. Like, and so, like I said, like, I don't have a problem dropping him in any format if you still have him on your roster.
I agree, man. And it feels crazy to say, but that's where I'm at too with Alek Manoah right now. He's only been cut, it looks like, in one main event. He's at 96% rostered. I wonder if we'll see that tick up this week, even though he's on the docket for a 2-step. I wonder if more people will be like, you know what? Yeah, it's a 2-step, but I'm not using it, so I'm cutting him. I wonder if we'll see that roster rate dip for Alek Manoah. But it's been brutal, and it's hard to have any hope for the future right now, for the immediate future right now. Our last guy, Jake Irvin, Arizona and at Atlanta. Probably not with the at Atlanta. I'm just curious if there's anything that you're seeing from Jake Irvin with Washington for deep leagues. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to include him. Because I thought it would be nice to include Jake Irvin. No, I don't know.
He appreciates it.
He does appreciate it, and I know
we know he listens. Yeah,
this is Irvin. Mm-hmm. But so there's some really good 2-steps this week, but my God, there are some terrifying ones. So lots out there. I think it's going to be an interesting week of bids across all formats because of this 2-step group here for sure. I think we came out and, do you have a specific favorite here? We kind of termed Elder as an automatic, so he's kind of above the fray there.
I think Sears is my favorite. Like, I think he's just, like, I think his skills have been really, really impressive. You wish he was on a team that could win games, but
he's
going up against the worst team in baseball against left-handed pitching. Like, I think he's my favorite kind of pickup this week because Elder's going to be rostered.
Elder again was just a check-in to make sure that we were full-time starting him. Paxton is pretty high up there, but also not going to be as available. So I agree with you. Sears among the more available guys, and my boy Varland. I know that we split on that one for sure, especially because
Oviedo's a fun one this week. Yeah.
I still like Oviedo quite a bit. So, okay, plenty to look at this week as far as pickups. And again, we're going to be having a Tuesday episode next week. You doing a Sunday up tomorrow or in a couple days?
I believe we are. So as long as Jason can go, I don't have a guest set up, but I'm going to check with Jason here in a few minutes and make sure he can go. If he can't go, then I'll go get a guest.
Fantastic. All right, Justin, great talking with you. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Take it easy.